My research focuses on neuronal plasticity, the changes in the brain in response to changes in the environment. We're all familiar with various forms of this plasticity in learning and memory that are so important to us all. It's been known for some time that this plasticity involves changes in the strength of the connections between neurons. We call these synapses. These synapses can be stronger or weaker. And we know also that this plasticity involves changes in the numbers of these synapses, these connections.
For decades, from the day I first got into neurobiology, and for decades, it was widely assumed in the field that each cell in your brain made a certain signal molecule called a transmitter, and that's what it did. It did that from the moment it became a neuron, and that's all it could do. It could make more, it could make less, that's what it did. What Nick has shown, and people are slow to accept this, and now they do because it's so counter-dogma, is that's not true. A neuron, depending on what happens to it, can change. It can stop making this, start doing that. Instead of being black, let's be white. Instead of being negative, we're going to go positive with our signal. In short, completely different chemistry. Now, we finally realized, thanks to Nick's work, that's not only true when the neuron's developing, it's true in the adult. This is totally counter-dogma, totally outside the pale.
We've discovered another form of plasticity in which neurons change the chemicals, the neurotransmitters, that they use to communicate with one another. Sometimes this involves adding an additional transmitter. Other times it involves actually switching from one transmitter to another, changing from excitation to inhibition, for example, or vice versa. And rather remarkably, this plasticity involving this change in neurotransmitters can be driven by natural sensory stimuli, by light or by smell, for example. So this gives us a new understanding of the flexibility of the brain and its, the way in which it responds to the environment.
Recently, and Nick was the prime mover in this, the head of this, established a globally accessible website called brainfacts.org. He did this for the Society of Neuroscience with his 40,000 members, but it's available to the entire world, an enormous amount of work, and you have to have credibility to make this work. Nick did. He was able to reach across the world, get first-rate scientists to participate, and it is now a tremendous achievement.
Our research not only gives us a new understanding of the different forms of neuronal plasticity, but it also affords an opportunity, we think, to use natural sensory stimulation, non-invasive sensory activity to change the identity of transmitters in the brain, to help people recover from depression, schizophrenia, and treat neurological disorders.
Nick Spitzer's research is changing how we think about fundamental features of how the brain works. Features that determine things like learning and memory. He's brought a whole new dimension to how we in the field now view those processes.
I continue to be fascinated by this work, and I'm at it every day because it's fun, first and foremost. It's occasionally exhilarating. It gives me the opportunity to work with very smart young people, and I always have the feeling that the most exciting result is just around the corner.